The notification sound was what woke me at 2:47 a.m. Not my phone, his. The screen lit up our dark bedroom with another message from Weekend Warriors, a group chat I'd never heard of despite being married to David for 12 years. What I discovered when I opened that phone wasn't just evidence of my husband's secret life. It was documentation of a conspiracy so elaborate that everything I'd believed about my marriage, my friends, and my own reality had been carefully orchestrated lies. My name is Dr. Catherine Reed, and for 8 years, I'd been building a successful forensic psychology practice while believing I was married to a loving husband who supported my career and shared my values about honesty and partnership. What I didn't know was that the man sleeping beside me had been documenting our entire marriage in a group chat with my closest friends, systematically destroying my reputation while positioning himself as the long-suffering victim of a controlling, ambitious wife. David thought he'd created the perfect exit strategy. Years of documented evidence showing him as the patient, supportive husband of an increasingly unreasonable woman who prioritized career over family. His group chat conspirators, including my best friend Sarah, my sister-in-law Monica, and 3 other couples we'd socialized with for years, had been helping him build a narrative that would justify whatever he planned to do next. What David had failed to consider was that his wife wasn't just someone with trust issues who'd discovered his betrayal. I was a forensic psychologist who specialized in analyzing deception patterns, documented evidence of psychological manipulation, and the kind of systematic behavior modification that could destroy someone's sense of reality while making them look like the problem. His group chat wasn't just casual conversation about marriage frustrations. It was a masterclass in gaslighting, reputation destruction, and collaborative psychological abuse that had been running for 3 years. But now, the woman who'd spent her career exposing lies and building airtight cases against manipulative people had access to every message, every strategy session, and every laugh they'd shared at my expense. Picture this: our kitchen on a Tuesday morning that would have seemed perfectly normal if you didn't know that the man making coffee while asking about my day had spent the previous evening texting a group of 6 people about how my obsession with work was destroying our marriage and making family gatherings uncomfortable for everyone. David and I had developed what I thought was a comfortable morning routine over our 12 years together. He'd make coffee while I reviewed case files. We'd discuss our schedules, and he'd send me off to work with the kind of supportive husband energy that made our friends jealous of our partnership. "You've been working late again, Kath. I worry about you burning out with all these high-profile cases. Maybe we should plan a vacation. You know, reconnect as a couple." What I'd interpreted as caring concern was actually David building documentation for the group chat about my workaholic tendencies and inability to prioritize our relationship. Every conversation about my career success was being reframed as evidence of my selfishness and emotional unavailability. That particular morning, his phone had been unusually active. Constant buzzing that he'd attributed to work group chat drama that I shouldn't worry about. I'd been too focused on preparing for a major court testimony to pay attention to the specific pattern of notifications that would have revealed the group's morning strategy session about my latest unreasonable behavior. The night before, I'd declined to attend Monica's birthday party because I had case preparation that couldn't be delayed. A perfectly reasonable professional decision that had apparently triggered hours of group chat analysis about my antisocial tendencies and pattern of putting career before family obligations. "Honey, I understand that your work is important," David had said after I'd explained about missing the party. "But Monica was really hurt. She's been planning this for months, and family should come first sometimes." What I'd heard as gentle guidance was actually David establishing the foundation for that evening's group chat session, where he'd described my selfishness and inability to understand how my choices affect other people. My professional commitment was being systematically rebranded as personality dysfunction. The conversation had concluded with David suggesting we might benefit from couples counseling to work on communication and help me find better work-life balance. I'd agreed, thinking we were strengthening our relationship. He'd been documenting my agreement to therapy as evidence that even I recognized my behavioral problems. For 3 years, every conversation about my career, every professional success, every time I'd prioritized work responsibilities over social obligations, had been carefully documented and analyzed by a group of people I'd trusted, systematically building a case that I was the problem in our marriage. But David's perfect documentation system was about to become evidence in a very different kind of case than the one he'd been building. The 2:47 a.m. notification that changed everything came from a message that revealed the true scope of David's documentation project. Guys, she's getting suspicious about the phone buzzing. Need to switch to email for coordination until after the therapy appointment Thursday. As a forensic psychologist, I understood exactly how to analyze digital evidence without contaminating the source. David's phone contained 3 years of systematic documentation that went far beyond casual marriage complaints. This was organized psychological warfare designed to destroy my credibility while positioning him as the reasonable party. Phone examination sounds methodical. The Weekend Warriors group chat contained David, my best friend Sarah, my sister-in-law Monica, David's college friend Marcus, Marcus's wife Jennifer, and another couple from our social circle, Tom and Lisa. 7 people who'd been systematically documenting and analyzing my behavior with the thoroughness of a research project. What I discovered wasn't just casual gossip about marriage problems. These people had been conducting regular strategy sessions about how to respond to my behavior, what kind of social pressure to apply, and how to document incidents that could be used to support David's narrative about my character flaws. Sarah, 2 months ago. Kat's being weird about the dinner party again. David, you should document this pattern of social avoidance. Show she's becoming antisocial. Monica, 6 weeks ago. David's right about her work obsession. Last night, she spent the whole family dinner talking about her cases instead of asking about Mom's surgery recovery. Marcus, 3 weeks ago. Bro, you're a saint for putting up with this. Most guys would have left by now. Make sure the therapist understands how hard you've tried. Every social gathering I'd missed for work, every time I'd been tired after long days, every professional achievement that required travel or evening commitments had been carefully cataloged as evidence of my selfishness, antisocial behavior, and inability to maintain appropriate relationships. But what made the group chat particularly damaging was how they'd coordinated responses to manipulate my behavior and emotional state. When I'd expressed frustration about feeling isolated from friends, they'd been deliberately creating that isolation while documenting my complaints as evidence of paranoia and social dysfunction. Jennifer, 1 month ago. David, when Kat asks why we've been distant lately, tell her we're concerned about her work stress. Makes it look like caring instead of judgment. Tom, 3 weeks ago. Lisa and I will skip the next dinner invitation. If enough people decline, she'll think it's about her personality instead of us following the plan. Monica, 2 weeks ago. Perfect setup for the therapy suggestion. When she realizes people are avoiding her, David can position counseling as helping her understand how her behavior affects others. The group had been systematically gaslighting me for 3 years, creating social isolation while documenting my responses as proof of my problematic personality. They'd been manufacturing the evidence that would justify whatever David planned to do next. But what David and his conspirators had failed to consider was that they'd just provided a forensic psychologist with perfect documentation of coordinated psychological manipulation, reputation destruction, and the kind of systematic emotional abuse that I'd spent my career identifying and exposing in court cases. Professional training in forensic psychology provides specific expertise in analyzing patterns of deception, manipulation, and coordinated behavior that most people would miss. David's group chat wasn't just casual conversation. It was textbook evidence of systematic psychological abuse designed to modify my behavior and destroy my confidence. I approached the analysis with the same methodology I used for court cases involving psychological manipulation and emotional abuse. The group chat contained over 3,000 messages spanning 3 years, revealing coordination that went far beyond casual marriage complaints into organized reputation destruction. The pattern analysis revealed 3 distinct phases of their operation. Phase 1 had been observation and documentation, where they'd simply recorded my behavior and framed normal professional commitments as evidence of character flaws. Phase 2 involved active manipulation, where they'd coordinated social responses designed to modify my behavior and emotional state. Phase 3, which had begun 6 months ago, was preparation for what appeared to be divorce proceedings. The group had been documenting everything that could be used to support claims about my unfitness as a wife, my antisocial tendencies, and my inability to maintain healthy relationships. David, 4 months ago. Lawyer says we need more documentation of her refusing family obligations. Monica, can you plan something she'll definitely decline for work? Sarah, 3 months ago. I've been keeping notes about her social interactions like you asked. The patterns show someone who's becoming increasingly isolated and work-obsessed. Marcus, 2 months ago. Jennifer's therapist friend says this kind of documentation could be really useful in custody discussions if you guys had kids. The group had been building a legal case against me while I'd been completely unaware that my marriage was ending. Every conversation about couples therapy, every suggestion about work-life balance, every expression of concern about my stress levels had been strategic moves in a divorce preparation that I didn't know was happening. But the most damaging discovery was how they'd been manipulating my professional reputation. Sarah had been sharing details about my cases with the group, who then used that information to create social situations designed to make me look unethical or unprofessional. Monica, 5 months ago. If Sarah tells us about Kat's cases, we can ask questions at parties that make her look like she violates client confidentiality. Lisa, 4 months ago. Perfect. When she explains her work to be helpful, we can act uncomfortable and change the subject. Makes her look socially inappropriate. David, 3 months ago. Keep pushing the therapist's suggestion. When she agrees, it supports the narrative that even she knows her behavior is problematic. The group had been systematically destroying my social relationships, manipulating my professional interactions, and coordinating a divorce strategy while positioning themselves as concerned friends and family members trying to help our marriage. But what David and his conspirators had failed to understand was that they'd just provided a forensic psychologist with perfect documentation of coordinated psychological abuse, reputation destruction, and the kind of systematic manipulation that could result in serious legal consequences for everyone involved. The 4th phase of David's plan, which I discovered buried in the most recent messages, revealed a conspiracy so elaborate that it transformed my understanding of not just my marriage, but my entire social reality for the past 3 years. David wasn't just planning to divorce me. He'd been conducting a 3-year operation to systematically destroy my professional reputation, social relationships, and psychological stability in preparation for a custody battle over children we didn't even have yet, but that he'd been secretly trying to have with my best friend Sarah. Sarah, 1 week ago. Pregnancy test was negative again. Maybe we should wait until after the divorce is final before trying seriously. David, 1 week ago. Dr. Martinez says the timing doesn't matter legally, but it would be cleaner. Once we have documentation of Kat's mental instability, custody won't be an issue. Monica, 5 days ago. Mom's been asking about grandchildren. Should we tell her about the plan or wait until Sarah's actually pregnant? My husband of 12 years had been having an affair with my best friend while building a legal case to prove I was mentally unstable, all in preparation for a future custody battle over children they planned to have together. The group chat had been documenting evidence for divorce proceedings that would paint me as an unfit mother before I'd even become pregnant. But the conspiracy went deeper than infidelity and divorce planning. They'd been systematically sabotaging my professional relationships by sharing confidential information about my cases, creating situations designed to make me appear unethical, and building a network of concerned friends who could testify about my declining mental health and social dysfunction. Marcus, 2 weeks ago. Jennifer's sister works at the courthouse. She says Kat's been getting a reputation for being difficult with opposing counsel. Our documentation about her personality problems supports that narrative. Tom, 10 days ago. Lisa heard from her friend at the medical board that someone filed a complaint about Kat discussing cases inappropriately at social gatherings. Probably nothing, but it adds to the pattern. Sarah, 1 week ago. I've been sharing just enough case details to make it look like she violates confidentiality. When people ask questions based on what I've told them, she looks unprofessional for answering. The group had been orchestrating professional sabotage, reputation destruction, and psychological manipulation while documenting my responses as evidence of mental instability. They'd created a 3-year gaslighting operation designed to make me question my own reality while building legal ammunition for future custody battles. But David's perfect conspiracy had one fatal flaw. He'd documented everything in writing, providing a forensic psychologist with complete evidence of coordinated psychological abuse, professional sabotage, and legal conspiracy that violated multiple state and federal laws. The group chat that was supposed to destroy my credibility was about to become the foundation for criminal charges against 7 people who'd underestimated exactly how dangerous it was to systematically attack someone who understood both psychological manipulation and legal evidence standards. The beauty of David's documentation obsession was that he'd created perfect evidence for charges that would destroy not just his divorce strategy, but the lives of everyone who'd participated in 3 years of coordinated psychological abuse and professional sabotage. As a forensic psychologist with extensive court experience, I understood exactly how to build cases that would result in serious consequences for systematic manipulation and reputation destruction. The group chat contained evidence of conspiracy, defamation, professional sabotage, and psychological abuse that violated both civil and criminal statutes. Dr. Reed, this is the most comprehensive documentation of coordinated psychological abuse I've seen in 20 years of practice, explained my attorney after reviewing the complete group chat archive. We're looking at civil cases for defamation, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, plus potential criminal charges for stalking, harassment, and professional sabotage. The first phase of justice involved exposing the conspiracy to the institutions they'd been manipulating. The medical board complaint against me had been filed by Tom's wife Lisa, using information Sarah had shared about my cases. The courthouse reputation damage had been orchestrated by Marcus through his wife Jennifer's sister. Letter to State Medical Board. I am providing documentation that the complaint filed against Dr. Catherine Reed was based on information illegally obtained and strategically shared by Sarah Williams as part of a coordinated campaign to damage Dr. Reed's professional reputation in preparation for divorce proceedings. The medical board's investigation revealed that every concern about my professional conduct had been manufactured by the group chat conspiracy. Rather than facing disciplinary action, I became the subject of a medical board inquiry into professional sabotage that would require testimony from all 7 conspirators. The second phase involved criminal charges for stalking and harassment based on their systematic documentation and manipulation of my behavior. 3 years of coordinated psychological abuse designed to modify my emotional state and social relationships met the legal definition of criminal stalking in our state. Detective Martinez. Dr. Reed, coordinated psychological manipulation involving multiple people falls under our stalking and harassment statutes. The systematic nature of their documentation shows premeditation that elevates this to felony-level charges. But the most devastating element was the civil case for conspiracy and defamation. The group chat provided perfect documentation that 7 people had systematically coordinated to destroy my reputation, manipulate my professional relationships, and damage my psychological well-being while positioning themselves as concerned friends. The financial consequences alone would be life-changing. 7 defendants facing joint and several liability for 3 years of systematic reputation destruction, professional sabotage, and psychological abuse. My attorney projected settlements that would exceed $2 million before considering punitive damages. David's perfect divorce strategy was becoming the evidence for criminal charges that would result in felony convictions, professional licensing board investigations, and civil judgments that would destroy the financial security of everyone involved in his conspiracy. The man who'd spent 3 years documenting evidence of my unfitness as a wife had provided perfect documentation of his fitness for prison, bankruptcy, and permanent destruction of his professional and social reputation. 2 years after discovering David's group chat conspiracy, I was sitting in my expanded practice office, reviewing consultation requests from attorneys handling similar cases of coordinated psychological abuse and reputation destruction. My expertise in analyzing systematic manipulation had made me a nationally recognized expert in digital evidence of psychological warfare. The criminal cases had resulted in felony convictions for all 7 conspirators. David received 18 months in federal prison for conspiracy and stalking. Sarah lost her teaching license and faced additional civil penalties for violating my privacy. Monica, Marcus, Jennifer, Tom, and Lisa all received probation and substantial financial judgments. Dr. Reed, your case has become a landmark precedent for prosecuting coordinated psychological abuse, explained the prosecutor during the sentencing hearing. The documentation these defendants provided has established new legal standards for protecting victims of systematic reputation destruction and digital stalking. The civil settlements had exceeded $3.2 million, with David and Sarah bearing primary liability for the conspiracy, while the other participants faced proportional responsibility for their roles in the systematic psychological abuse. None of them would recover financially from the consequences of their 3-year documentation project. My professional reputation had been completely restored with additional recognition for my expertise in identifying and exposing systematic manipulation. The medical board had not only dismissed all complaints against me, but had asked me to consult on developing protocols for protecting healthcare professionals from coordinated reputation attacks. I'd also begun dating again, this time with complete confidence in my ability to identify deception and manipulation before it could damage my emotional well-being. Men who were intimidated by my professional expertise in exposing lies were exactly the kind of people I no longer had time to consider. David had occasionally attempted to contact me from prison, apparently believing that his psychological manipulation skills would work even after being convicted of using them against me. I documented each attempt as evidence for his parole hearings, ensuring that his demonstrated inability to accept responsibility would extend his supervision period. The group chat that was supposed to destroy my marriage and professional reputation had become the foundation for criminal convictions, civil judgments, and legal precedents that would protect other victims of coordinated psychological abuse for years to come. David had thought he'd created the perfect documentation of my unfitness as a wife while building a relationship with my best friend. Instead, he'd provided perfect documentation of his fitness for prison, bankruptcy, and permanent status as a cautionary tale about underestimating forensic psychologists. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing your husband's lies, it's using his obsessive documentation against him while building legal precedents that protect other women from the same kind of systematic psychological warfare. They'd called me controlling and antisocial. I'd used those false accusations to demonstrate what real control looked like when applied by someone who understood both psychology and law. And sometimes the greatest gift a manipulative husband can give you is complete written documentation of his conspiracy, delivered directly to someone whose career involves building airtight cases against people who think they're smarter than the evidence they leave behind.